Yo, what up world? Welcome back to another video. Today's video is dedicated to beginners, absolute beginners, people who just got FL Studio and want to jump in and start making some beats but just don't know how to yet. If you're one of those people, then this video is definitely for you. I know there's a lot of beginner tutorials out there already, but I feel like a lot of them are really detailed. And although that's good, I just think that it's a bit too much information to take in at once, and it could be overwhelming to the new user. So I kind of want to do this express guide where I only talk about the absolute essentials that you would need to know to start making music in FL Studio. And if you have any questions at all, just leave them in the comments below, and I'll be happy to answer anything, because I will be going pretty quickly and you might not get everything. So if there's something you want to know, just let me know and I'll be happy to answer it for you. So with that being said, let's just jump into it. When you first open up FL Studio, it should look something like this. It might not look exactly like this. For example, you might see the mixer open or something. If that's the case, just press F9 to get rid of the mixer, or X out of anything that's not the channel rack. If you don't see the channel rack open, just press F6 on your keyboard, and that will make the channel rack appear. Just some things up top right here. 140 is the BPM, or beats per minute, of the track, and to change that you simply just click and drag up or down, and that changes how fast or slow you want your song to be. Next to that you have your record, stop, and play buttons, and then we have something called pat and song. You want to make sure you're on pat. That is short for pattern. That means we'll be working directly out of the channel rack and not the playlist. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it for now. You will by the end of the video. Okay, and then this knob right here, this is just the master volume knob. So if you want your overall project to be louder or quieter, then you just change this master volume here. Okay, so this whole section right here, this is the browser. All this stuff I honestly wouldn't even worry about right now, like mixer presets, impulses, envelopes, sound fonts, all that stuff. Don't even worry about it. All you need to know are that your drum samples are found under packs. You click packs and you see a bunch of different folders. We'll click drums, and then you see that we have our kicks, our hats, our cymbals, snares, percussion, even some effects. And these are where all your drum samples are. So that's all you really need to know about the browser right now, that your drum samples are found under packs. So your instruments. To get to your instruments or your VSTs, that could be found through the channel rack, through this little plus button right here. You just click it and you get another drop down menu, and this opens up whole bunch of different VSTs and instruments. Now your drop down menu is going to look different than mine, because I have mine set up a certain way. Like these are all my third party VSTs here at the bottom, and then everything from patcher all the way up to 3x oscillator you should have. It's just going to be organized a little differently. For example, Citrus might be in a folder called Synth Classic, and Harmor might be in a folder called Synth Special. So just note that you have everything here. Besides the third-party VSTs, they're just organized a little differently. And to open up an instrument, you just click it and it will appear in the channel rack. So if you're using the default FL Studio template, which I'm assuming you are if you're a new user, it probably loaded up a few sounds already. If that's the case, then just right-click each sound and hit delete, so we have a blank channel rack to open. So you want your channel rack just to say sampler, and at that point we are ready to start adding some samples to our channel rack. So I'm going to go back into packs, because remember that's where our drums are, and I'm going to click drums, and we'll start with a kick. So I'll click the kicks folder, and we get a big drop down list of a bunch of different kicks. Now to hear each kick, all you gotta do is click it. Just click it once. And then we can hear the sample. Once you find the kick you like, you simply just drag it into the channel rack. So we'll do that for a snare as well. Open the snare folder. We see we have a bunch of snares here too. just click it to audition it, meaning just to play it. And then we'll drag the one we want into the channel rack. We'll close that out, and we'll do the same for a hi-hat. All right, so let's add some VSTs to the channel rack. So we're gonna hit this plus button, and I'm gonna add a citrus, and I'll add a flex. And I'll just X those out. Okay, so now we have 3 samples, the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, and 2 instruments / VSTs, whatever you want to call them, that are citrus and flex. So let's talk a little bit about the channel rack. This little green light here just indicates that the sample or VST is active, and we can mute it or right click and solo it. And then this knob right here is just pan it left or right. And this is just volume, how quiet or loud you want your sample or VST. Okay, so let's talk about the steps, because this is a step sequencer. So each one of these little rectangle things here are called steps. And to turn a step on, you simply just click it. To turn a step off, you just right click it. Now, every time you add a new VST or sample into the channel rack, you will get a new row of steps for that sample or VST. So this first row right here, this is for the kick. This second row right here for the snare. This third row is for the hi-hat, and so on. So how do the steps work? Basically, the easiest way of explaining it is that every time you turn a step on, you're just telling FL Studio that when you press play, you want that sample to trigger at that point in time. So the way time works in music is that we deal with bars and beats. So generally, if you're making pop music, there are 4 beats per bar. And the way the channel rack kind of distinguishes the beats are through these color changes. So every time it goes from gray to red to gray to red, that indicates a new beat. So I'm just going to make this 1 bar long, because remember, 4 bars equal 1 beat. And I'm going to put the kick on the beginning of each beat. So that's right here, color change right here, color change right here, color change right here. Now when we press play, the kick will play on every single beat. All right, cool. So you want to get into the habit of working with 4-bar loops. It's kind of just like the unofficial standard. So let's just get rid of all of this by right clicking, and we're going to drag out our channel rack. Now in music, it's really common to have the snare or the clap on the 3rd beat of every bar. You don't have to have it there. It's just common, and you hear it in music all the time. So remember, there are 4 beats per bar, and we want to put the clap on the 3rd beat 4 times, because we want to work with a 4-bar loop. So to achieve this, we simply just got to count. So this is the first beat. Remember, every time it changes colors, it's the beginning of a new beat. So we got 1, 2, 3. That's where our snare is going. This is the 4th beat. This is the beginning of a new bar. So let's count again. 1, 2, 3. That is the 4th beat. This is the beginning of a new bar. So let's count again. 1, 2, 3. That is our 3rd snare. And we got 1 more. 1 is the 4th beat. So 1, 2, 3. And now we got our clap in all 4 bars perfectly on the 3rd beat. And it's also really common in music to have the kick on the downbeat or the 1st beat. So we'll just do that for every one. Make sure that is right. It is right. Okay, so we can test this out. All right, it's pretty dull, not much going on. So let's just spice this up. And we can do that by adding some more kicks. So I'll add a kick to the 4th beat. And I think I'll add a kick on a quarter note right before each snare hit. And I'll just give the track some bounce, and I'll add one here at the end. And let's take a listen. And I think I'll just add a double kick right here. Okay, cool. So the hi-hat is very common just to have on every other step, and we can easily achieve that by using a shortcut. We can right click and just hit fill each 2 steps. Now let's take a listen. All right, let's lower the hi-hat just a bit, and we're going to pan it to the left just a bit. All right, so I think we're ready to go into the piano roll and start making some melodies and chords. All right, so when you're working with any like non-percussive VST, any tonal instrument, meaning like a guitar, piano, strings, brass, bass, anything like that, you generally want to work in the piano roll and not the channel rack. But before we even get to the piano roll, we got to pick out our sounds. So first, let's open up Citrus. And if this all looks really overwhelming to you, don't even worry about it, because we're just going to be using a preset. And don't let any producer tell you that real producers don't use presets, because they most definitely do. So I don't know where people get that from. So we're going to click this little arrow right here at the top left, and we're going to get a drop down menu, and the second choice will be presets. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch, everything from guitars to organs to brass to arps, whole bunch of stuff. I think I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm going to go to piano, and I'm just going to grab an FM Rhodes, and that sounds like this. Okay, cool. And we're going to go into flex, and I'm just going to hit dark resonance because I don't know, it sounds cool. And yeah, we're ready to go into the piano roll. All right, so to get to the piano roll, all we need to do is right click the instrument, hit piano roll, and that should open up. So if you're looking at this for the first time, it probably just looks like a bunch of lines and squares to you, but it's actually pretty easy to understand. The horizontal lines just represent the different notes. The shaded squares are the sharps and flats, the black keys, and the non-shaded squares are the whole notes, the white keys. So that's what that is. And then the vertical lines going across, they just represent the different beats and bars of the music. So these bold lines here, these like more thicker black lines here with the number on top, these represent the beginning of a new bar. So let me move this. We see that we got bar 1. Then we got this bold black line, that is bar 2. We got another bold black line, that is bar 3 and 4. And these not as thick lines here in between, these just represent the beats and the quarter notes for each bar. So in the channel rack, we use a step sequencer to determine when we want a sample to play. It's kind of the same idea here in the piano roll, only instead of just determining when we want something to play, we have to determine what note we want it to play, since we're using an instrument. In this case, it is Citrus with the FM Rhodes patch. So I'm just going to place a note on every beat here. I'm going to make it an F note. So I have an F note at the beginning of every beat in the first bar. So I'm just going to play that. And as you can see, it triggered an F on the beginning of every beat in the first bar. And we could do whatever we want. Basically, we can bring this up to an A and this down to a D. And now we'll probably have a little melody. So as you can see, you can basically do whatever you want in the piano roll. All right, so what I want to do now is make chords. I want to make a chord progression. Now, if you don't know how to make any chord progressions, I'm gonna in the description below, I'll leave like a bunch of common chord progressions just to help you get started, and I'll show you how you could easily make them. So up here at the top, next to the wrench and magnet tool, you have this circle with like 3 little lines in it. This is the stamp tool, and basically with this whole first section here are all chords, types of chords. We got major, minor, fifths, diminished, octave chords, minor ninths, you know, a bunch of stuff. The rest of this stuff is scales and other things, so don't worry about that right now. We're just focusing on the different kind of chords. So all you got to do is, let's say you want to make a major chord. You hit major and you determine what note you want that major chord to be. So if you want a C major, you just hit C and you see that the chord is written out for you. Now you can drag MIDI just by clicking it and dragging it. All right, so I want my next chord to be a minor chord. So I'm gonna hit minor and I'm gonna make that an A. So we see A right here. Want it at the beginning of the second bar. I just hit A and you see that it filled in the whole bar with an A minor. So I'm gonna make another major chord. I'll make an F. So see, it did the same thing. And I'm gonna make one more major chord. I'm gonna make a G. And now we have our 4-bar chord progression just using the stamp tool. And you can get really creative, you know, just try different combinations out and, you know, just have fun with it. So let's take a listen to this. Okay, I like it, but I think it needs to be in a lower octave, which means I want all these same notes, but just played at a lower pitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control A, and then I'm going to hit Control down on my keyboard, and that's going to bring this all this MIDI we just did to a lower octave. All right, now let's take a listen to it. All right, so now we're ready to go into Flex and write out our melody. So let's right click, piano roll, and I'm gonna hit Alt V. This is gonna bring up what's called ghost notes. And basically this is just all the other MIDI we did in other samplers and instruments. So all these chords here is what we just did in Citrus, and these are all our drum samples that we did earlier. So the reason why I bring this up is just because it kind of helps us stay in key and gives us a little guide to writing out our melody. We can see what notes we already use, like we have a C, E, G, we used an A, we used an F, we used the B. So now we know that we can use those notes in our melody and stay in key. So let's just gonna write out a quick little melody here. Let me shorten that. Lower that a bit. All right, so before I even play it, I can tell that this is way too low. So I'm gonna do the same thing we did in Citrus, but the opposite. I'm gonna hit Control A. Instead of bringing it down an octave, I'm gonna hit Control up, and that's gonna bring it up 1 octave. All right, so let's hear this. So just a few quick things I want to mention before I end the video. This little window right here in the channel rack just indicates what where you want this particular sample or instrument to go in the mixer. So if I have this on 5, it will show up in the mixer on insert 5, and when we press play, we see that to be true, and I can put the snare on track 1, and when we press play, you see that the snare is now on track 1, and this is where you can add all your effects using these slots right here, but I'm not going to get into that for this video. And lastly, once you have everything, your beat done in the channel rack, if you have everything on pattern 1 like I did for this example, best way to split this up is just by clicking pattern 1 right up here and click the option split by channel, and now we see all the different patterns we did come up here, and we can just arrange them however we want in the arrangement window here. So yeah, that's about it for this video. I hope you got something from it. I know this wasn't like the best beat. I was just using a quick example just to show you how you can get started. And if you like this video, definitely consider subscribing. I will have I put out a lot more advanced stuff than this. And yeah, thanks for watching.